This is Swarfcast. I'm Noah Graff. Today's guest on the show is Tyler Jarosz, recently retired owner of 26 Products. Immediately after finishing tech school in his early 20s, Tyler moved to Bozeman, Montana to pursue a career in machining and go mountain biking and snowboarding when he had time. At age 40, he retired. In this interview, I asked him how he accomplished this feat and why. I am very grateful to be with Tyler Jarosz, retired owner of 26 Products. Welcome to the show, Tyler.
No, thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Tyler reached out to me last week, actually stumbled upon the show. He has a very interesting story, and I felt like it was something that everybody would find interesting listening to this show. Before I go any further, where are you talking to me from on Zoom?
No, I'm sitting in my kitchen in Bozeman, Montana.
Bozeman, Montana. And what is it like over there right now? Is it nice out?
It's a beautiful day. I went mountain biking this morning. It's 67 degrees.
Oh, I wouldn't have expected it to be warm. I mean, you guys are like north of here. I don't know.
I think it's going to change tomorrow. We got snow coming.
Okay. So as you guys heard in my intro just now, Tyler just retired. You are 40 years old?
Yeah, turned 40 this month of April.
All right. So he just turned 40. He had a very successful machining company. And I want to go back and find out how he got into it and what led him to where he is now. So first, just start at the beginning. You grew up in Wisconsin?
Yeah, I grew up in Wisconsin. I got into manufacturing. Actually, it started in my senior year of high school. Through my education, all the way back to grade school, I was in a learning disability program. And those classes were aided to help me with reading, writing, and just general comprehension. And so school was always very difficult. And so my senior year of high school, through that learning disability program, they took us to the local technical college where we got to tour the machining program, the automotive program, and the police science. And instantly, as soon as I got introduced to the machining side, when we went through the machine shop, I was hooked because I've always been into mountain biking and just biking in general. And I just saw these machines that I could produce something with my hands. I've always been really good spatial awareness, so kind of how things are made and whatnot.
How did you feel with them I'm learning disabled as well. And despite the field I'm in, I'm not very technically inclined, but how did you feel when they specifically had your class go to see the trades stuff or whatever? Did you go, oh, well, what impression did that give you? Or you were just like, yeah, this is great. I don't like book learning anyways. So
it was actually a relief because I remember my parents taking me to a couple different universities, maybe across Wisconsin. And I was like, there's just no possible way that I'm going to be able to be successful in college. And so being introduced to the trade school, it was like, wow, this is finally something that I can be successful at.
So what did your parents do? They weren't involved with the same field, were they?
No, not at all. Yeah, my parents. My father was a salesman for a lumber yard, so he would travel around to different job sites and different contractors and sell them building materials. And my mother was in charge of payroll at a lumber yard, a different lumber yard, but and they both went to just a technical school. My mother went to technical school for like office clerical work, and my dad went to technical school for drafting.
But they still valued, the point of higher ed, which is maybe one of the things you emulate it, I guess. So you went to a technical school, and what did they teach you there? I mean, we hear a lot about people going to trade schools, technical schools, schools to learn machining. It seems like it's across the board what that can mean. What did they
Right.
teach you?
Yeah. So the school I went to was I did a 2-year degree in machining and then a 1-year degree in welding. And the machining side I thought it was a really, even to this day, I think it was a really good program. They started us out on the manual machines, and that was like for the first full year of the first, it was started on the lathes, then to the mill, and it was all manual. So you really got kind of your basics. And then the second year of that school was all CNC based. So learned the cam and set up the CNC machines.
So you think that's pretty important for people to learn on the manual machines first?
I truly do. Because I can't tell you how many people have come to my shop that have been like top-notch machinists. They seriously didn't even know you could tap a hole on a manual mill. One thing that I kind of take away from that school, and I think is so important, is we had to even grind our own tools, which really taught us like how does something even cut? What does it take to make something cut? And I thought that was just having that background of that really baseline knowledge is super important.
Right, because if you're trying to troubleshoot probably on a part, that would help a lot. So, okay, so you did 3 years, and then you said, I am getting the hell out of Wisconsin.
Yeah, during high school, I was way big into snowboarding. I used to compete snowboarding and things like that. Wow. And so I used to go to Montana every spring break throughout my high school career, or while I was in high school.
Yeah.
And from my freshman year in high school was the first time I went. I was hooked and knew like I need to get out here somehow. So that's as soon as I finished the 3 years of technical school after high school, I went straight to Montana, Bozeman, where I live now. I landed and fell in love with it.
Wow. So you get to Bozeman, that's like super fast growing, right?
Oh my goodness. Yes. Unbelievable.
Are you a fan of that, or you have mixed feelings about that?
It's kind of reached the point of no return. It was good I'd say at its time, like work was plentiful from it. And now it's overcrowding is definitely an issue.
Yeah.
Recreation wise, just even doing anything, going to a brewery, restaurants, everything is just out of control. And prices here are very, very high.
Yeah. You feel like you've been sort of invaded by.
I mean, I also came here too. I came here 19 years ago. So I'm no different than everybody else. Like I came here because of love of the mountains. A lot of people came here because of that. And so I'm no different than anybody else moving here.
Well, that's a fair perspective. So you came to Bozeman, and then you got a job in a shop, just started at the bottom, correct?
Yeah. Yep. Correct. Yeah. I worked for $9 an hour at a machine shop, literally just loading parts in just CNC machines and different machines they had. But right away, I started to just really work on the side at nights, just kind of making my own stuff for my bicycle.
Did you need to do that, or would you have been prepared pretty much to run machines from your technical school in Wisconsin? Did you just kind of need to see how an operation worked, and then you could?
I thought it was so important. Yeah,
right.
I truly do. I think it's so important just to run parts and actually see how things cut, how a shop runs. I think you'd miss a lot if you just go straight to being a programmer at a shop. You wouldn't see like how long parts take to make, what's actually involved in producing these parts, like cutting materials to just other things that you maybe miss, and which in turn helped me with quoting parts later on down the road.
Okay. So you started at the bottom, and then for the next 10 years, you worked in various shops, or what's the time?
No, actually, I only worked in various shops for 4 years.
4 years.
So,
and then 30 years old, you started your own shop?
At 26. Like when I was
26.
26 years. Yeah.
Okay. So tell us how that worked. How did you start your own shop?
That was a really hard road. Again, working at that machine shop, I used to just rent machine time from my boss. And so I would pay him $35 an hour to use his machines on the weekends. And I'd run small production runs of these bike parts that I was designing.
What were you running it on? What kind of machines?
I was running on Haas mills. And then from there, I kind of, shall I say, overstepped my bounds in terms of, all good things have to come to an end, using the machines way too much. And so I got
What were the
introduced
parts?
they were these brake levers for bicycles. So there were these hydraulic disc brakes that are on mountain bikes. So I started making brake levers for these hydraulic disc brakes that enhance the performance of the brake. Just brought them to local bike shops and eBay and things like that. Just whatever I could do. At that time I was like 23 years old.
So these were things that you needed for yourself. And then you figured, all right, now I'll just bring them around and say, hey, I have these are good.
Yeah. Basically it's just kind of showed the bike shops like, hey, these definitely enhance performance. They looked really cool. They're anodized different colors and they really just kind of stood out on the bicycle. And everybody it just likes machine. Oh, not everybody. A lot of people like machined parts that look cool. And so this kind of stood out. And
then you were local. So they probably.
Yeah, that too.
So you took them around and then what led to the next stage?
Well, the next stage was, I had to go to another shop then, needed greater challenges personally. So I got a job at another machine shop in town, which allowed me way greater responsibilities. I was able to run the shop there. So I kind of just got immersed in quoting and just a ton of parts. I've gained a lot of more experience necessary that kind of led me to starting my own business. But I designed this bicycle pedal, and that's kind of the mainstay of kind of what 26 Products was.
Do you have the pedal with you?
Not the first one, but I do have the one where I left off.
Cool. Just hold it up to the camera like that and describe it.
So this pedal is extremely grippy. This is the main concept that I was going off of. These traction pins here are extremely sharp. They really bite into your shoe. There's a wide pedal platform, so they grip your foot really well. There's knurling here on some of the parts of the pedal body, and just really intricate machining, titanium axles, unique seals that are in it. Basically, you buy these, they're forever. Like, people that own these just have them forever.
And this is for mountain biking?
This is for mountain biking, yes.
Cool.
That's their intended use, yes.
Okay, so you were making the pedals and selling them on eBay, going to local shops and stuff. And then what happened?
Then I kind of, this interest kept growing from that. I was working nonstop on the weekends and after work too, just working nonstop to basically build products. And eventually I was like, okay, something's got to change. And so I got introduced to a local technical college. It was actually in Butte, Montana, which is about an hour and a half from here. And so I'd travel over there. And eventually I just had to go back I went to part-time at my day job. I worked Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. So then I had Fridays and Mondays off work. So I could basically work 4 days in a row on the weekends on my own stuff. So I'd go over to Butte, Montana and rent from that technical college and just sleep in the bed of my truck and just make as much as I could in that 4 days and come back to work on Tuesday, just throttled. And it's kind of what I needed to do. And I did that for a few months. And then eventually just things were picking up, sales were to the point where it's like, okay, I got to make this leap. I'm 26 years old. Like, what else do I have to lose?
Yes. Well, I think that was a good calculation considering you didn't have kids. I don't know what your relationship status was, but so you made the leap. How did that feel when you said, I'm just going out on my own?
Scary, but I've also been a confident person. I competed a lot snowboarding and same with mountain biking. So it's like through those experiences, this gave me confidence in myself. And I just knew that I had the work ethic and drive that no matter what, I could find work for these machines. Like I knew the capabilities of the machine and what you could produce on them. So I knew that if bike parts wasn't the mainstay, I could pick up work locally from other people that needed manufactured goods.
Okay. And so then when you went off on your own, you were making the bike parts, but then you started diversifying?
Yeah, so I focused 100% on the bike parts, and then people would contact me from just because I met a lot of people throughout the valley at those two machine shops I worked at, just because I had a reputation at those machine shops, and they'd contact me to do a little something. So I'd be like, oh crap, I gotta like tear the machine down to fit their stuff in, but again, it's lucrative. So it was definitely a very hard juggle at first to tear down these production runs of bicycle parts. And I was going to shows, some in California, some in Vegas. So just all these things that really kept me going.
Yeah. You always work alone, correct? Or quasi alone?
Yes. Yeah, I've always done best working alone at work, just because I really like the quality work that I've always done is super high, top notch. And it's really hard to find somebody with that same skill sets that I had or same attention to detail. And so throughout the whole time I've been in business, I've always just had a one employee, whether that's full-time or part-time, just depends on kind of the season or the year or whatever work that I've got going on.
Even doing the books though, too, after feeling like, it seems like you describe yourself as not interested in book crap. But you preferred to do it on your own. Is that just because you felt like you didn't need anybody, or?
I did the bookkeeping for the first couple of years, but then it got too complex and I hired that out to a local accounting firm, but that's super, that's no problem to hire that out.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so the accounting side that I hired out right away after a few years in, but the machining side, I was even always the one, even to the day I quit or the day I got done working, I was always the last one to check a package that was going to go ship out to anodize or a different coating process or what have you, because I wanted nothing to fail. I wanted to just be the person that my customers could 100% always rely on. And I've always trusted myself in that. And I'm not saying it's the way, but it's been successful for me.
Sure. So you felt like the way that you were able to be the most reliable was by you handling it.
Correct. And profitable too, because I was just the best person to set up machines and run these parts efficiently.
Yeah, right. But we interviewed a guy a little while ago. His name is Ari Meisel, and his whole shtick is you have to be able to replace yourself if you have a business. Otherwise, you own a job. You don't own a business, but you'd say you owned your job pretty much, and it worked.
I definitely own my job, but I got paid handsomely to do that job. So
yeah,
it worked for me.
So you describe yourself as passionate about machining. You told me that before. So if you're passionate about machining, it's kind of interesting that you're no longer doing it as your daily life. Is that because you burned out on it, or you have other passions, or?
It definitely not burned out on it. It got into manufacturing. I got first enticed in manufacturing in high school because I wanted to make bike parts. I first started my business making bike parts, and it's something I've always loved to do. It's that's what I'm passionate about, the machining side of creating something that you're into. And I'm extremely passionate about mountain biking and snowboarding. So it basically, I definitely never burnt out on machining at all. But now I'm able to focus on, I have a job shop now, just a hobby shop. I can focus on the side of manufacturing that I'm truly passionate about. That's making cool niche things for myself that I deem important and challenging.
How often do you go to your hobby shop?
Definitely, at least for sure weekly. First project I made this winter for myself was I made the molds to make my own snowboard, and that was something really high on my list that I wanted to make and never had time to do something of that great of a task. It's a huge task to do, and
yeah,
I really enjoyed it.
What's one of your secrets to, we were talking before, and clearly one thing you'd say is that you're just really good. And so one thing you did was you're really good. You trust yourself and you earned a certain trust around you. But still, I mean, lots of people have talent and work hard and, claim to be passionate about it. Why did this work for you and other people? I mean, it's not a set formula. Do you think you're just sort of extraordinary about what you do? You have true mastery, and that's why you were able to do what you did?
I definitely don't feel I have true mastery at all. I think there's a couple ingredients. Talent was the first one, hard work, and just efficiencies. For instance, for the last 10 years, I've lived above my machine shop. And so I've always focused on keeping the lathe running. So it's like I'd wake first, as soon as the alarm went off in the morning, I'd run straight downstairs before I'd do anything, and would just throw a bar on the lathe from a job from the previous night, and just get the lathe running. So it'd run for an hour while I was upstairs eating breakfast and getting ready for work. And then same
Smart.
too, as soon as I get done with work, I would just, throw another fresh bar in there before I left, so I could go mountain biking or go to dinner or something like that. So I'd always just really focus on those lights out manufacturing with the lathe, because that's just one testament to the efficiencies that I just focused on.
Right. So you were trying to work smart.
Yeah, just trying to work smart.
Yeah.
And keep my overhead low. I was the only one on the books besides a part-time employee, sometimes full-time employee. And so there was very little expenses.
Yeah, that really does make a huge difference. You mentioned that you always wanted to put in like an honest employee's work day. Explain that.
To speak to that, one thing I've really held myself to is accountability at work. I felt like I always treated myself as an employee. Like I wasn't on my phone or at all during the workday. Like just like I expect out of my employee, I expected out of myself. I wasn't going to be on the phone all day messing around on who knows what. If I were to take a longer lunch for an appointment, let's say for a doctor's appointment or something else, I'd always stay late. So I always held myself accountable to a minimum of a 10-hour workday, and whatever that entailed. If I had to take a little bit of time off during the day to do personal tasks, I would just stay late. Just I treated myself no different than I would expect an employee to work for me. And that really paid off leaps and bounds. Just think of like, if you take off 5 hours of the day of free time or throughout the week of free time, well, I mean, that's 5 hours of work you could have done.
You now are quote unquote retired. Tell me about that. Did you always have this goal of I'm going to retire at 40?
The goal started when I was 30 years old. Things were becoming very profitable. Machining was, I was gaining a bunch of great accounts and great customers. And I knew that one day it was going to be attainable, not at 40. I anticipated 45 or 50, but it was a dream come true to be able to meet this goal when I did.
You just had a number in your head. You thought, if I can get to X, this is going to enable me to do whatever.
Yeah, my wife and I own a building in downtown Bozeman, so we also have rentals in that building.
Income, yeah.
Yeah, and so there's income from that, and then I definitely I work with a financial advisor, and I had a number in my head that was the number necessary to continue the lifestyle that my wife and I wanted to live. And once I met that number, I knew it was the time to start having the true seek out my other passions that I love also.
Okay. Are you pretty busy during the day? I mean, what do your days consist of?
Yeah, I can't believe how busy I am actually. One thing that is one of the coolest things that I get to do every day is I get to have coffee on the couch with my wife each morning. Never was able to do that before. I always had to bring my coffee down to work every morning really early, and now I get to do that every day. today was a Monday, and I started my day mountain biking. And last week Monday, it snowed a foot, so I went snowboarding. So,
But you were doing that stuff before.
I definitely was always doing. Yeah, I would just on the weekends though. So now I get to do it every day and in greater capacity than I ever did get to do it before.
Yeah. It sounds like you think the way you did it worked for you versus maybe some people might say, well, I'd rather work a little bit less during each day and then get to do a little bit of that.
Yeah, I see you go. For me, I'm not the type of person that's when I get involved in something, I sink everything into it. And so for me, it's like the work was just coming in and coming in. I couldn't turn it down.
So did it feel like a sacrifice of your time, or it didn't? It just, or did it feel like you were passionate about it, you were so into it that it didn't feel like you were making a sacrifice for the future, or did it?
It definitely took its toll, and it definitely felt like a sacrifice, but I knew that there was an end in sight, in that it just had to tough it out. We'll call it tough it out. I mean, I still snowboarded and mountain biked and did all these fun things all the time, just not in the capacity that I truly want to be doing it in. And so, yeah, definitely it was a sacrifice, but I knew that it was short-lived.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I'm listening to this book right now. It's something with 4,000 weeks is in the title. So, I don't know if you realize this, but if you live to 80, you get 4,000 weeks.
Okay.
Doesn't sound like a lot, right?
Doesn't seem like a lot. Yeah.
No. So the whole thing with this guy is how he talks about how we're all trying to squish as much as we can productivity wise in. And the problem is once you can squish some in, you just keep wanting to get more and more in. And then instead of it actually saving you time that you have free time, you don't have any time at all. And one of the things he was saying, there are many people who say, well, once I get this done, then I'm going to be all set and I'll be able to do all the things I want to do. You do hear that from a lot of people, but they're planning on retiring at 65, I guess. So,
right.
I think if now 39 or 40 seems young to me since I'm 42, was that going on in your mind this whole time of once I get this done, then I'm going to be able to do all the things I want? Or was it's a little bit of that. And also you strike me a little bit as though like you went to Montana immediately. It wasn't like I'm going to make these sacrifices and then I'm going to go to Montana. So you were already there and still like trying to, get something out of it. Right.
Yeah. Right. I mean, when I moved here with the purpose to enjoy and recreate in the mountains here. And I never lost it. Like I got more driven like the minute I landed here when I was 21 years old. And I knew that I could feel the fire. Like I just want to be in these mountains more and more and more. And this was a way for me to be in the mountains as much as I want. And I'm not getting any younger either. Like you can only recreate so hard when you're 65 years old, and I'm never going to be healthier than I am today. And so that was another thing that drove me. It was like, I'm as healthy as I'm ever going to be.
Yeah. I'm feeling aches and pains and it's ridiculous. Everything that people say happens. Anyways, I'll stop fetching. I have so much to be fortunate about. What gives you purpose?
Definitely purpose for me is the recreation that I seek out. I love getting space shots on your snowboard. That gives me a ton of purpose. Spending all the time in the mountains with the freedom that they offer. I love that side. Other purposes that I find is making unique, cool things for myself. Like that snowboard I made this winter. I also made some other tools for myself for building mountain bike trails. And I love that side, being creative.
Right. Being creative. I mean, the thing I'm always struggling with is I want to do something to leave my mark on the world or, affect other people. I I think with you making the bicycle parts, I see that a little bit. You're creating something for other people that may not be that important to you. Maybe just, enjoying God's earth and all the wonderful things in it is what makes you happy. But do you feel that way, like in your current state of, it's hard for me to even imagine, like, just, clearly you're not stopping. You're not stopping at all. You're very active. You're not just sitting and watching TV or something, but do you feel like you are wanting to do something for, like, there's something I'm doing that's influencing others in the world? That sounds like that's not something that you prioritize.
I would say I didn't prioritize it. So about maybe 6 or 7 years ago, the Helena High School, so that's the capital, Montana. Their machining program is, like, in the high school, is one of the best around. And so the teacher and I hooked up, and so he would send his students down every spring break, a select few from his program, and they would come to my shop, and they'd work with me for a week, and it was awesome. Amazing. I got free labor, and I got to instill in these students just some skill sets, and one of them actually became one of my best employees for 3 years.
Really?
That she worked. Yeah. So it was an amazing opportunity there. I'd always go also every the first day of school to that machine school, or to that the high school, and I would speak with the students and their parents. So it was like a barbecue thing they put in after school on the first day of school, and all the students and parents in that program would have to come to that barbecue, and I'd speak with them. It started out like 6 years ago, talking about machining and my products, and then eventually this last one I did this past September was focused on disabilities, and not let that define you, and seek out what you're passionate about.
See, exactly. I knew that there was, well, as far as the learning disabilities, again, I'm learning disabled. You feel like it taught you some discipline, some grit,
Definitely.
Yeah.
I thought that being learning disabled, to me, it was like, I almost felt like I had to overcome, I have to overcome way more than the average student in school, or a lot of the engineers I've worked with over the years. And so it just kind of gave me more drive and more, I don't know, just ability to just figure it out.
Well, there are a lot of like the CEOs of big companies and stuff happen to be learning disabled. I don't know if you knew that, but it kind of makes sense in the end.
Yeah. You become kind of great at something else.
Well, as we wind down, I always like to ask people, what is something that you learned last week, or perhaps something, that you read about that affected you or saw?
Something that sticks out is actually a podcast I listened to this morning. It was your podcast, Swarfcast. I think it was episode number 57. It was a gentleman on there that wrote a book getting young individuals into manufacturing and in the trade school. And that always resonates for me, because I feel like it's definitely under maybe utilized, and definitely not held in such a high regard as I feel it should, because trades are so important, and there's so much you can do with them and be so successful with them.
So what do you think people can do to achieve that? Or do you think, and part of it, do you think is people like yourself, doing a podcast like this, or going to schools? Is that one of the most important things? How can we solve the problem?
I don't know if it's a problem we can solve, but we can address I think it's a lot of societal and parental things that are influential there. Like my parents went to a trade school, so trade schools were accepted and really highly valued, where some other individuals are maybe colleges, their parents say, if you're not going to college, they're disappointed in them. And so I think it's kind of like a shift of that culture for that to kind of push people into trades, or because I've seen so many people come through my door that they just missed the mark on what they're good at or passionate about because they went to pursue education that their parents or society or their friends, peers thought that was deemed a good decision.
Yeah. I mean, no offense to higher ed. I mean, it's a great way to network, and it's a great way to have a lot of fun. That's for damn sure. But I think you're totally right. Even if you do go and excel in college and get straight A's and go to grad school, there was this book. I didn't actually read the book. I listened to this podcast called The Next Big Idea, where they talk about books, and it was about the meritocracy, about how the meritocracy it doesn't really exist anymore. You know what I mean by the meritocracy? It's this whole like, if you do X, then if you go to a good college, you can get a good internship. And if you get a good internship, then you can get a good job. And if you get then you'll go up in the ranks, and then this whole formula of doing that can't work because too many people are doing it. If everybody's playing the same game, even if you're doing a great job, even if you are cut out for book learning, so thank you. I'm so glad that was something you said. And when you said it was podcast number 57, I was like, which one? You totally made me feel so good. Oh my God, totally boosted my ego. And I asked this other question to people. You've sort of shed light on it already, but when you hear the word happiness, what does that make you think of?
Happiness to me is honestly spending time in the mountains, spending time with my wife. Those are the things that I truly see happiness.
I look at you and you seem happy. You seem very content, and I consider myself pretty happy. But you seem like I look at you, you seem very like at peace,
Definitely. I set myself up that way in life. I pursued things that really made me happy. Recreation, a career that was super fulfilling, something that I was passionate about and driven to do. So I feel like I've checked all the boxes for myself.
You feel like you've checked all the boxes, but you're 40 now. And what's the next box you need to check? Because, come on, you need to keep going.
Well, that was one thing I knew, that I needed to just take that time to figure out what the next box is. And what I mean by take that time is just spending as much time as I want to do the things that I want to do, recreation wise, to personal projects in the shop, self-growth that way.
Yeah.
So I don't have the next box to check today formulated. I'm not sure when that'll happen or what that box will be, but whatever it is next, it's going to be just like I've kind of structured my life, is around something I'm passionate about, something I'm driven to do.
That's so fantastic. I think envious is a bit strong, but it sounds like you've cracked the code, at least for you. So I'm struck by it. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the world, to today's machining world?
I mean, something that really always sticks out for me is, don't let your deficiencies define you. Follow your path.
Interesting. All right. Well, thank you. And it's going to come out sometime in the next few weeks. I'm going to become a father in 2 to 3 weeks. Oh my God.
That's exciting. You're ready.
No, of course not. I'm not ready.
Yeah. Who's ready?
I'm used to living a life like you, like just, come home and do whatever I want. But I'm sure it's going to be a great adventure.
That's going to be an awesome adventure, Noah. It's sweet. I'm excited for you.
Thanks. You mentioned before that's just not your thing, having kids.
Yeah. That's something my wife and I are going to be pursuing.
Yeah, well, there was a good chance we weren't going to do it either. And we're old. She always likes to call herself a geriatric pregnancy. That's true. She's almost 43, but
I mean, I think it's cool that you guys lived a huge chunk of your life, half of your life without a child. So you got to do a lot of cool things, you know? And I respect you having a child when maybe, I don't know, just hypothetically, they did all the cool things you wanted to do. Now it's time for a different chapter. I don't know.
oh, well, I hope I'm going to do a hell of a lot of cool things. I hope,
Well, yeah, yes.
I hope it's just getting started. I felt like I needed a little bit more movement in my life too.
That makes sense. It makes total sense. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I think, when I moved here when I was 21, so it was like I was by myself. I didn't have any parents around, of course. Like, it's not like I had to go to any not parent. I didn't have to go to family events. I lived in Montana. I was like, I had a whole new chapter. I could clean slate, not that I needed a clean slate, but it's like, I got to define myself and what I wanted and what I needed.
That's a very astute comment. Are you sure you don't read all kinds of like analytical, self-helpy bullshit, that kind of stuff? Nothing like that. No Atomic Habits or like.
I'm not ignorant, but I have never read a book. No joke.
What about listening to books?
No joke. The only book I listen to with my wife is Harry Potter.
If you're gonna listen to a book, it's a pretty good one. I mean,
it's a good one. Yeah. I mean, but like I said, I just started listening to podcasts January 1st of this year. So it's like, yeah.
Well, if you need any recommendations, like I could probably name a few that you'd find pretty good, because it seems like you're a very cerebral person that would probably appreciate it, but you never read that many books because you are a slow reader, or I'm a slow reader.
Well,
but
yeah, honestly, again, it's like my weakness. It's like I'm not strong at it, and so I don't get a whole lot out of it. I have a very short attention span first off with the book, and so also comprehension of it. I don't get a whole lot out of it when I read myself. I need to listen to it to do it, and to be honest, time. It's like
You didn't think about listening to stuff while you were machining?
Oh, I definitely can't. When I'm at work, I'm like so focused. Like, I mean, my wife Lauren could tell you, it's like I'm just driven at work. When I'm at work, it's like when I check out and when I punch out for the day, I'm good. I'm not like weirdo, But like when I'm at work, I'm like so focused. I'm in it to win. And so like
no music.
I just listen to heavy metal at work, but it's never like cranking. It's just there on as a kind of calms me down, kind of just gives it that kind of takes away the other hums going on. But I mean, I definitely could never listen to a book at work. It's like I was so focused on my job and what I was doing. I mean, I was running so many machines at a time. So it's like I just got to be focused, It's how I worked, I focus and I'm driven, and it just worked for me, All my employees listen to books, and it's like I always see it screwed them up, not screwed them up in a bad way, but I mean not screwed them up in the way it's like they'd miss things, at work,
Yeah, no, I get that, but I mean, like in the car, it's like nothing like a book or a podcast. Love it.
Man, to be honest, for me, it's like I was just under so much stress and pressure. It's like I get done with work, I go to the mountains. It was like no music. I just like decompress, just think about the day. I don't know. It just worked for me. Again, it's not for everybody.
No, I know, but it's like this one book I'm listening to, the 4,000 weeks thing. I mean, what he says is a lot of the things you say, of just like stopping and being in that moment, not worrying about what you're going to do next. Or he was talking about, I don't know if this is analogous or not, but there was this really interesting story about a guy who decided he was going to become a monk. And so he went to Japan, a white guy. And, first they like won't even give him a chance, and then he begs, and they're like, all right, finally, you can like sweep floors for us and, serve us breakfast or whatever, and maybe we'll give you a chance. And then they made him do this thing where he had to like douse himself with like ice cold water, just pour buckets on it. It was like the most painful thing. And what he did was he would try to think of something totally different to distract himself. And what ended up happening was, for some reason, that made it all the more painful. He wasn't able to handle it until he started just thinking about the thing, not thinking about when it's going to be over, or thinking of something warm or whatever. Once he did that and he just like leapt into it, I guess he was able to handle it, and I don't know, was then able to eventually become a monk or something. I don't know. I'm not doing the best job of telling this story, but the point of it is like not running away from it and just trying to like be in the moment. I don't know. One of the things I'm trying to do.
That's interesting.
You probably can relate to that, right?
Definitely. Like when I'm through my work, through my recreation, it's like I'm in it.